It's okay, Hellboy. At least we still have the comics. Hellboy is a reboot of the franchise of the same name, directed by Neil Marshall and starring David Harbour, Ian McShane, Milla Jovovich, and Mo from EastEnders. Yeah, she's in it for some reason. Now, before I get into this new movie, I thought I would at least let you guys know what my opinion is on the previous two Guillermo del Toro films. I love these two films. I grew up watching them, and I think still watching them today, they held up really, really well. Yeah, some of the CGI isn't great and hasn't held up that well, especially in the first movie. There's a few moments where some of the CGI is a bit crap, but everything else is pretty damn solid. The characters are really likable, the practical effects are in abundance, and they're really, really good and really hold up really well. And yeah, they're just really well executed and pretty nicely polished off comic book movies that were a little bit different at the time and were a nice change of pace. Taken into account, going into this new movie, I went in as open-minded as I could be for a film like this. And I mean, it's very hard to go in open-minded, especially considering how much I love these first two films. And I'm just going to be honest, whether you go in open-minded or not, this movie's still shit. I really hated this movie, and I know there's some people defending this movie in a sense, saying that it's not as bad as people are letting it on to be. Well, I mean, I kind of disagree, because I could not find that many redeeming aspects about this film. I really didn't like it. And I just want to make something very clear. If you genuinely like this movie, and you like it not in a joking way, then good for you. Don't let me take that away from you, because what I'm going to say in this review is pretty much just going to shit all over the film. So if you genuinely like this movie, don't let me take that away from you. You like the movie, and you obviously managed to find something in the film that I didn't. So don't let me, being Mr. Grumpy Fucker over here, take the fact that you like the film away from you. We're all entitled to our own opinions, and I just didn't like it whatsoever. I might as well start with what little positives I can really get out of this film. There's one really cool scene at the end where these monsters are attacking people, and it's just really over the top and is kind of cool to look at. And also, you can tell that David Harbour is trying his best despite the shit script that he's given. Those are where my positives end. Everything else I have to say about this movie is negative. And I mean that in probably the most literal sense ever. The characters in the movie, especially the main group of characters, are all dicks. Hellboy comes across as a right arsehole almost all of the time. The Asian guy that he's sidekicked with is a prick. Like, he's not nice to anybody, the same as Hellboy. The only likable character out of the main trio of heroes is this girl who can talk to ghosts. And yeah, she's probably the most likable of the three, but that being said, her character is not interesting in the slightest. And I know I shouldn't, but comparing this to the original Hellboy films, you had a central trio that were unique, different, but also mainly likable. You had Hellboy, Abe Sapien, and I think her name's Elizabeth, basically the one who has the fire. And they all had unique personalities and were able to bounce off each other in a comedic way, but also in a way that you kind of could tell they respected one another. Here, they're kind of all arseholes to each other, so you can't really latch on to one of them because they're being pricks. And that leads on to another problem that I have, out of the many that I had with this film, and that is the relationship between Ian McShane's character and Hellboy. Ian McShane plays Hellboy's dad in the film, and I suppose in this film he's playing the equivalent of John Hurt's character in the first Hellboy. Now, in the first Hellboy, there were moments where John Hurt's character, Professor Broom, I think his name was, and Hellboy genuinely had moments where they respected each other and got along. So that when, spoiler alert, his character died halfway through the film, you actually gave a crap and it was an emotional moment. In this movie, every time Ian McShane's character and Hellboy talk to each other, they're at each other's throats all of the time. Every conversation they have is literally an argument. So that when an emotional moment does happen towards the end involving one of those two characters, you can't latch on to that relationship because there was no relationship in the first place to latch onto. They're always arguing, and never once in the movie do they have a moment of reconciliation or genuine bonding. They just argue with each other all the time, so when something dramatic and emotional does happen, there's nothing to latch onto in terms of emotional weight. None of the jokes in the movie were funny in the slightest, and whilst we're on the point of the script and just how the movie's constructed overall, the structure of this movie's kind of broken as well. I kind of agree with what Chris Stuckman said in his review, is that it feels like it was botched in the editing room by studio executives, because the movie just rapidly goes from one scene to another with no transition in between, and it just feels really jarring. Like, as soon as you're getting used to one location, you then are just shoehorned into another location just like that, and you're expected to just go along with it. But because it rapid fires through every scene and every location so quickly, it's very hard to, first of all, tell what's going on, and secondly, actually hold your interest in these areas. Like, 1 minute, Hellboy will be in Mexico, but then just as that starts getting interesting, he will then go to London. And then just as that starts getting interesting, he then goes to a different place. And when you're trying to get fully engaged in these scenes that are set in different places, it doesn't spend enough time in each of these places for you to get engaged and immersed within those scenes. Instead, it just goes, okay, we're here, now we're there, now we're over there, now we're over here, oh, and the movie's over. It goes by so quickly and rushes through everything in such a half-assed way that you can't really enjoy the scenes and let them sink in as much as you could with, say, the first two Hellboy movies. I thought the use of gore in the movie was just really fucking pointless. There are a couple of times in the movie where the gore is just so in your face and over the top that you can tell they are really abusing the R rating that they got for this film. Like, there's literally one point where somebody gets ripped in half right in front of the screen. Like, they're over here, and then they get deliberately pulled in front of the screen to just get ripped in half. The gore is just so fucking pointless in this movie. It only has one cool bit, which is the bit that I was on about. The cool scene towards the end is quite over the top with its gore, but it kind of works. But for the most part, the gore's just really gross and pointless, and it's just gore for the sake of gore rather than having a reason. The music in the movie is just really fucking annoying, and that's just the score. Whenever they decide to put a modern pop or rock song in there, it feels distracting as hell. And I think I know what they were trying to go for here. They were trying to go for the whole Guardians of the Galaxy, let's have popular songs in there to make it cool and stylish. The reason why it works so well in Guardians of the Galaxy is because the music fits the style of the movie, and it fits the tone of the scene that bit of music is being used for. Here, it just feels like they're using music just because they have it. Because, like, for example, there's one scene in the film where Hellboy is fighting these giants, and all of a sudden, the song Psycho by Muse starts playing. And rather than it being a nice accompaniment to that scene, in the end I was just thinking, oh, this is Muse. I like Muse. why the fuck are they playing Muse? The CGI is pretty bad for the most part. There are a few moments where it's worse than others, but yeah, it's not that great. Some of the creature designs are pretty decent, but again, you don't get enough time to properly look at them, so you can't really fully appreciate them. I suppose if you're looking at concept art, yeah, you can appreciate them a bit, but again, you don't get enough time to properly look at these creatures to have a full appreciation for them, whereas in the Guillermo del Toro ones, you can they spend literally kind of a whole scene on these creatures, and you really get to know them, the design of them inside out, which is why you appreciate them a lot more. I don't know, guys. I really, really, really didn't like this movie. Like I said, though, there are some people out there that like it, and if you are one of those people, don't let my negativity take that away from you. You enjoyed the film, I didn't. That's just, you know, a differing of opinions, and we don't all have to agree on the same thing. With that being said, I'm going to give Hellboy 2019 a 3 out of 10. I really didn't like this film. I can't even see myself watching it again anytime soon because of just how bad I found it. So guys, that was my review of Hellboy. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked the video, then give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Bye.